Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tai'Shar a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Will. We mixed it up on you.
Yeah.
We mixed it up.
We got a good one for you, folks. I think. I don't know.
It's exciting.
We're going to talk about the show a little bit and then some other stuff.
Yeah, Sam's going to have some fun stuff to talk about a little bit later. If anybody has played the video game, apparently it's still possible to do.
So. It was shocking. Let me tell you, shocking that it's possible. We'll get into that. It'll be fun.
Sam, might there be spoilers in this episode?
There indeed will be spoilers. I think it's sort of impossible to avoid when talking about the show and possibly when talking about the video game.
Yes,
for a variety of strange reasons. But yes, we should say from the get-go, if you are worried about spoilers of any kind related to the Wheel of Time, check back in with us next week. We'll be back on Lord of Chaos, or I think we will. We'll be back on some book that is going to be focused and not spoilery-ific.
Yes, we'll be back on Lord of Chaos, and as normal with those, we try to avoid spoilers until the end, at which point we will announce our spoilers. So if you are just joining the podcast and you were hoping for a spoiler-free episode, listen to the previous one, or wait till the next one, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So... well, this is our show update episode, and as everybody is still in quarantine, there's not just a ton of really new information, but we did have a virtual Jordan Con last month. I didn't get to go. Sam, you didn't get to go, did you?
I didn't even know they were doing it, actually.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I was really busy that weekend. And I think as we may have mentioned in a previous episode, my job at least has really kind of accelerated since the lockdown has happened, and so I've been busier than normal.
Yeah, I gotta say, I have. It's almost like I feel like I have more time because I'm not commuting, but I have less.
Yeah. It's kind of a funny world we live in right now anyway. The kind of a surprise visit from Rafe at one of the panels of the virtual Jordan Con. He was only there for a little more than half an hour. But I encourage you to watch it because perhaps the most interesting things were the things that he didn't say. And to understand what I'm saying, you really need to see it. There are several times where one of the other panelists says something about maybe the premiere dates or the number of episodes or potential changes, and you kind of have to see Rafe's reactions or lack of reactions and decide on your own. You draw your own conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say
he doesn't confirm or deny. He just gives you expressions, it sounds.
Right. Yeah. And they're not huge, but you could just watch and kind of, like I say, draw your own conclusion and decide if you think, he's kind of subtly agreeing that, yeah, as you've heard, 8 episodes basically, and have, been confirmed, those kinds of things. So, and it's worth watching otherwise. So, there are several things. One of the things that came up kind of late in the discussion was we shouldn't expect any behind the scenes stuff until after the show premieres. Rafe says that his philosophy is he doesn't particularly like for folks to see behind the scenes stuff before they see the scenes.
Whoops.
So, we've had a few leaks here and there, but we're not going to see any official kind of behind the scenes footage or stuff like that coming out from Amazon. And we're still a ways off from a trailer, but we kind of knew that anyway. He said they've been able to work on scripts for season 2 and kind of get ahead there and focus on post-production for the episodes they've done so far. I'm hopeful that means that we're going to have a shorter gap between seasons 1 and 2, maybe because of that stuff, that maybe they'll be able to kind of flow right into it. We'll see.
I kind of would, I know this unlikely they would do this, but just go ahead and release what you've got. I would be okay with that. I don't know if they will, especially depending on where they stopped filming, where that ends, if it would make sense to or not. But if it happened to end at the end of the Eye of the World, come on, man, just put it out there.
The one thing that I'm wondering is, because as we'll get to in a little bit, there's kind of an online book club discussion going on. And Rafe tweeted out, and I looked for this tweet. Someone else screen capped it. I don't know if he posted it in his Instagram or wherever, but he kind of posed the question for the book club. hey, what kind of stuff, because they're talking about the prologue, what kind of stuff would you like to see in the show from this? Well, presumably they've already shot it, but it does make me
Yeah.
wonder, if things are still fluid enough that maybe he's open to feedback. Of course, I've brought up several times the prologue that they added for Lord of the Rings, and that was
Right.
actually really late in the game in the editing process.
Huh.
Like they didn't plan on that. That was not in the original script. It was kind of a while after that they went back and did a few reshoots, and then of course so much of it is CG anyway that they
Yeah.
added that back in. And so it kind of makes me wonder if it's like, hey, while we're having this pause, what would it look like to get a little feedback about the prologue? So who knows? We'll see. He talked a lot more about and just in vague terms, the changes from the books. But he assures multiple times that the spine and the heart, those are his words, of the story will be there. And he feels that it's his job to protect those. He spends more time than I've ever heard him,
Yeah, it
in
sounds
any
like
other
he's anticipating some
pushback.
Thank you. Some pushback from hardcore fans of maybe something that Brandon Sanderson has alluded to, of changes that he's made that he may have thought. And I was thinking about this a little bit on a run the other day, and like for instance, the fact that we pretty much have Logain confirmed, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so that it makes a certain amount of sense. I'm sorry, this is getting a little off topic. But
No, it's fine.
It's on the topic of the show, at least.
Yeah.
It makes sense that we would have Logain because in the first book, at least, the only way we see the kind of menace of the male half of the source is sort of through exposition. Of course, we have the prologue, but other than that, it's like, well, we know that men who channel go crazy, but you don't see any men channel, and so it's like just this sort of nebulous concept. And I think it would make sense to have to like see Logain being a false dragon and maybe being captured by the Reds to show one, how serious the Aes Sedai are about capturing and gentling men who can channel, and two, just as a sort of a foil for Rand almost.
Right.
That could be kind of a compelling change from the books that I would be okay with, even though there's like the only real way we see Logain at all is in a cage, going through Camelin, and he like sees Rand off in the distance in the palace, and I would be okay with them expanding on that as long as it didn't dominate too much and take away from the main narrative. But even if it's just a couple of scenes to sort of establish the menace of the male half of the source,
Right.
and kind of set off the once Rand realizes he can channel, or once they start alluding to that, just kind of give it a little bit more of a sense of urgency, of a sense of
Right. Well, one of the things that I've wondered, and this would require some changes that I could understand might take up a little bit more time and everything. So I can understand this not being popular, but if they kind of set up Logain more as a antagonist in the early episodes,
yeah, I could see that. Mm-hmm.
and where he's something to be feared, and they at the same time they really they maintain more of the mystery of maybe he is the dragon, and maybe what does that mean, and all of that. And so for people who haven't read the books, that it might actually be a question of, okay, well, if this guy's the dragon, then maybe the dragon's a bad guy, and he's something
set
to be
him
feared.
up almost as the antagonist of the first season, and then of course he isn't at all. They capture him, and then that's just it.
Right.
And then you get a hint of Ishmael or something. I don't know.
Right. And then, I mean, that would also really bring forth something interesting as his arc continues through the series, where, if they continue to follow it from there, he's gentled, and then he's kind of in this kind of impotent state.
Right. And he's in this conspiracy with Swan and Lyanna when they escape from the tower. And then, and then the whole story that he spends about the Red Aja, setting him up and all that stuff. And it could sort of deepen your affinity for the character earlier on. I mean, later in the series, he's a really compelling character, but early on, it's just, you kind of meet him in passing, and then he's gentled, and he's in this, like you said, this impotent state. And, you don't feel much for him really at that point. It's just like, well, okay, there's Logain, and, he's got the halo over his head. Maybe that's interesting, but yeah, if you have that early buildup, then maybe he is a more central character, a more impactful character. I like
Right.
that.
And you can see like the moment when Nynaeve heals him, then, would be a huge moment then, because if you'd had
Yeah.
this whole thing of him kind of being the bad guy at the beginning,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh crap, what does this mean?
Right.
Like,
And you can also see why Rafe would feel the need, if he indeed is going some direction like that, to defend himself, because that's
Right.
adding to the books. That's, there's so much source material, and there's plenty of argument to be made to say, why are you adding anything at all? Stop it. But then on the other hand, as we've talked about before, there's so much of these books and his books in general, the adaptations, that is delivered via exposition through a prospective character's thoughts. And there's only so much you can do with that. And if you still need to convey some information in a way that is effective, you sometimes need to do things differently. And this could be one example of the way they're doing that. And there could be others. And that it makes sense that he would want to sort of get out ahead of that a little bit. Like, listen, I have your best interest at heart. I'm trying to do the right thing here. But we also thought that we needed to add this in or whatever.
I also think he is aware of who he's talking to in this case, and that's the most hardcore.
Absolutely. If somebody's attending virtual Jordan Con, they they have their bona fides as being a true fan of the Wheel of Time novels.
So I think that's part of it. I mean, even the panelists that are there, I mean, these are people that were reading the books when they first came out. They know the differences between all the S name Aes Sedai.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he probably is talking to them as much as he is to the audience.
Right. So
trying to win them over.
So I think that's component, and they were all very generous with him, I think, and saying, yeah, we understand there's going to be changes, and and he kind of talked a little bit about adaptation as kind of a process, and just one of the things that he brought up is just the simple logistical reality of, okay, say you have a character that's introduced in the first or second book, but doesn't show up for like 3 books after that. Well, if you want to cast them with an experienced actor,
you have to make some decisions. You either have to incorporate them earlier on or just not have them in it at all.
Right. And he says, and he says very frankly, is like, I could leave this person in and get a worse actor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so that's the kind of,
you have to sympathize with those decisions a little bit. Like this is a sprawling epic, and you have to make choices. I mean, there's no two ways about it. You can't do everything that's in the books. Just can't.
And you have a lot of characters that kind of come in and out and, might play a kind of a central role in the broad scope, but aren't necessarily huge characters in the sense of, hey, they're going to be principals in for multiple seasons. And so, that's.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's
you think about someone like Varen who comes and goes.
Right. Yeah. She's a good example of that. And I mean, I kind of wonder if that's one he's kind of thinking about, she might not show up in this first season, even though she's very much a fan favorite.
Yeah.
Especially when you get down to the end of her story.
Yeah. The end is like suddenly she has a lot more impact and is like, whoa, that really colors all of her actions. And I think though you could get that same impact with, by combining her and another Aes Sedai if you had to. I mean, I'm speaking blasphemy here, but like just thinking about what Rafe might have to do. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, we're all trying to, be realistic and hoping for the best, preparing for the worst kind of when it comes to this. And, and recognizing, and he even said it, Daniel Green said it, hey, this isn't going to change the books. The books will still be there. Yeah. You can go back and read the books.
Yeah, that's what you have to say to the Game of Thrones folks too. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Who cares about the last 3 seasons? You have the books, except you don't have all of them.
Yeah. Right. Precisely.
That may be why those fans are a little saltier.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who absolutely. Garrett, if you're listening, I love you. I know he refuses to watch the last 3 seasons because he's like it's fan fiction, and I want to actually read and enjoy the books, and they haven't come out yet. I'm like, I get that. I fully understand that. As opposed to this, where we have all the books already, it's done. Right. We can have our podcast about the whole series with or without the TV show.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you and I just decided that we really hated the TV show, then we could just ignore it and keep podcasting about the books.
We could be the book podcast that is ignoring the TV show and just continue on our merry way. We're casting our own TV show with blackjacks and,
I got that reference. Okay, so yeah, I like how in this interview at one point Rafe said something about how he even recently he said watched something, well, and then he paused and he said, well, I'm not going to say what, but and he said I recently rewatched, and he paused and he's like, well, I'm not going to say what, and then something where I was like, the book was better, and then it made me go back and reread the book. And
oh man, please tell me you've not been watching the end of Game of Thrones. Don't do that, Rafe. Don't do that while you're writing the second season of the Wheel of Time show.
Right. I mean, maybe he's just asking, hey, where do they go wrong?
Yeah, where did they zig that I should zag? Yeah,
you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the whole session is over an hour. The Rafe bit is a little over half an hour, and there are lots of tidbits in there that you can kind of draw your own conclusions about. At one point, they ask him why he was so intrigued in doing the show, and one of the things he said is just because he thought someone else would screw it up. And that
you gotta love to hear that. Like that's an honest, good thing to say. Like,
right,
you can tell he's got the best interest at heart. Hopefully, he can live up to that.
It's clear he loves the story. He, like we've said a million times, he was a fan before any of this, and he went after it. When he found out Sony had it, he apparently went to them and pitched it. So that's
we know it was in development hell for so many years with Red Eagle Entertainment. It pains me to still see their name attached to it because they own the rights or whatever. But it sounds like they're not very involved. Maybe, hopefully, minimal involvement.
So that was the big chunk of news for the show. Also, there have been some reports that Europe is looking at reopening some for production.
I've seen other shows have, like, I think maybe Carnival Row was signaled to go ahead to start filming again. So, I mean, if Carnival Row is filming,
right? Yeah, they're there in the Czech Republic too, and that's they are prepping to get back to production. They haven't started yet, but I think we're looking at within a month is what they're hoping.
Awesome. Y'all stay safe out there.
For real. Yeah. Don't make this show at the cost of like your lives, please. That would put a real damper on the whole thing. But then Wheel of Time hasn't yet said they're going to go back into production kind of currently. I think they're looking at a little later in the summer for getting back at it. So hopefully, and I mean, we're all hopeful that this will continue to, as it looks like, the curve is flattening out and that we don't have a second wave of this thing and that people are able to get back to their jobs because it's rough out there. So one last little tidbit. I use the word tidbit a lot, I realize.
Fair enough.
Right. Yeah. Little fast fact if you ever listen to the Office Ladies. That's Jenna Fisher's phrase.
I've been meaning to listen to that. I love The Office.
Yes, I just recently started to listen to it. Anyway, so the last unknown guy at the table read from the very first video that they released with the Wheel of Time table read, he has been identified. He is Michael Tuahine, probably neither. Probably neither of those. And I've seen some people wondering if he's playing Bran Alvear, which I think is likely just because of the context of it being the first episode. And though he's not fat,
maybe he'll pull a Christian Bale and eat a bunch of pies or whatever.
Yeah. So know who all the people at the table read are. Only 6 months later, 8 months later. So another little thing before we get to the video game is that if you haven't heard about it, as before I mentioned it earlier, right now Tor has started doing this online book club thing, and Rafe is involved, and I think maybe some other cast members and crew members.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, and so they are releasing. They started with the prologue in the first couple of chapters, and last week, and I think they just did like chapters 3 and 4, maybe. And they're just releasing the chapters online for a little bit, where you can just go and read them, and then they're doing an online discussion. I think it's maybe like Wednesdays or Thursdays at 10 a.m. I don't know where, but you can if you just go to the Tor Publishing, their Twitter page, their Twitter account. It'll explain how you can jump in the discussion. I wish I had time to, but barely making time to record these.
Generally,
episodes.
their blog, the Tor blog, is a pretty good. So, like, they put out some pretty good quality content, I've found.
Yes.
As you wouldn't. It's not. You don't think of like a publishing company's blog as being particularly interesting, but they tend to like. Actually, it's more like a website. They put out articles and stuff, and it's pretty good.
So, we've talked a little bit about the fact that this is not the first adaptation of Wheel of Time to a different medium.
Indeed. Truly. There have been several, in fact.
Yeah, there's been a few. And we thought, during these months where TV news is just a little lean, that we might look into some of the other ones. This month, Sam, I mentioned to him about the video game, and a few minutes later, I was like getting text messages. I've got it downloaded. I've got it working. And, I'm playing it. And I was like shocked. I thought we were just going to have to find a, We Play video and watch it.
Yeah. That's what I expected fully. It was made in 1999. It's insane. Like, some gentle soul out there has spent a lot of time updating various things to get this to work on modern architecture, essentially. But you can't buy it. Like, literally, you can't buy it on Steam, on GOG, Good Old Games, like on any of the websites where you can normally, buy old video games. Like Humble Bundle, none of that stuff. You can go on Amazon and get like a used copy, the gray market. And I'm like, that just seems like a lot of work. But anyway, if you Google it, there's a couple of blogs, and you can just download it. Where I don't know where the rights are exactly. That's I would be happy to pay someone for this if someone would show me how. but it was incredibly inobvious how to pay for it, and this guy has like just done the work to just Google Wheel of Time video game. Being made in 1999. Have you ever seen the TV show Reboot?
Oh yeah,
CG,
one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, the CG is exactly like Reboot. It's like if you picture Reboot, you're picturing the CG cutscenes at least. Really, so the game itself was made with the Unreal Engine, of course, an old version of it.
Right.
So I really wish that they had just done a little bit of a better job on the character models, but the controls are really tight. The UI is pretty good. It's really just the character models are really blocky and awful. but anyway, so all that to say, it works. You're reading about it. It had pretty good reviews at the time, but it was made in like almost next to no money. Unfortunately, it was released at the same time as like some Unreal, some Quakes, and it just kind of got lost in the shuffle because, surprise, this is a shooter. That's right. They made a Wheel of Time video game, not as an RPG, as a first-person shooter.
That is weird.
Which is so strange. It really is. And they had to, they had to go to some links to explain that.
I've watched like the first set of cutscenes online, and but I hadn't I didn't see any gameplay. It's kind of odd to think that you wouldn't immediately go with an RPG. Like you have the mechanics of a magic system sitting right there that is right for a level system.
And my first thought was maybe they were intimidated by how complex the magic system is and didn't want to get it wrong. I could see that, or just the fact that Unreal makes it really easy to make a shooter. I don't know. That's all I can figure. But it is. So it's clear from the get-go that the devs are fans of the books. They definitely are trying to adhere to the lore, and Jordan apparently was consulted during development. So the game is set. It's set 150 years before the books. So Rand does not appear anywhere, although Ishmael does. Ishmael is essentially the big bad of the game. Spoiler alert for the game. We said spoilers, whatever.
Yeah, spoilers for everything. If you're listening,
we're going to spoil freaking Game of Thrones. Jon Snow dies. And then comes back to life. I'm sorry, whatever. It's done. We're spoiling things. You can cut that out if you want.
No, I am not going to cut that out. If you're listening to this and you care deeply about Jon Snow, and you have not,
you should have watched the show by now.
That is on you. 100%.
Man. A dude I went to college with posted it on Facebook like the day after the episode aired.
Now that's
A lot of people were really angry with him about that. Yeah, but this is years later. Like, yeah, you're right. Should stand by it. But so anyway, it is set 150 years in the past, and so you reading through the wiki, the game inevitably veers away from the canon in a couple of ways. Enough that the devs felt necessary to say that the game is set in a parallel universe reachable by portal stone. Fair enough. You can use the portal stone. We had parallel universes reachable by portal stone in the books. That's fine. So just a few facts that they got different in the books in the game from the books, and some of it's just petty details. Aes Sedai don't wear great serpent rings. I mean, maybe they just didn't render them. Whatever. That's dumb. But another point that's kind of funny: most Aes Sedai in the video game wear dresses in the color of their Aja, which, okay, sometimes that happens in the books, but including the black Aja. Wouldn't that have made things easier? Jordan, you could have skipped the whole slog if the black Aja had just worn black dresses. I really enjoyed that. Like, if just a few select characters, we said spoilers, if Farron and Shiriam had worn black dresses, that would have been great. Yeah.
Really would have been a spoiler. Like, it especially would have been funny if all the characters were oblivious to it. Like, they are.
It just turns out everyone's colorblind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're just like, hey, have you ever noticed that
Shiriam always wears black?
Even though she's supposed to be blue? Like,
what's up with that? She needs to get with the program. Like,
yeah. Okay. Well, let's continue our hunt for the black Aja.
Right. She's just a goth rebel. She just does her own thing. Yeah. Oh man, I love it. So a couple of other things, and I found this out myself. Touching Mashadar in Shadar Logoth doesn't make you go mad. It's more like getting burned by sipping a cup of hot coffee. Like, based on, so the main character's name is Elena Sedai, not Elaine. But based on her reaction, touching Mashadar is just like, ooh, ah. So then Balefire, as opposed to ripping holes in the pattern, is just kind of more like a magic laser.
Yeah.
So you can just use Balefire just all the time. In fact, you can use Balefire against Ishmael in the game and kill him, quote unquote, knock him out. And clearly he's alive 150 years later. So yeah, magic laser as a hand wavy. They shouldn't have named it Balefire. They should have picked something else.
Right.
That would be the problem. But yeah, as I said, you play Elena Sedai, who is of the Brown Aja and is the keeper of the Chronicles. And this is the kicker. She can barely channel. She uses Tirangriel instead of, because, this is a shooter. They had to find a reason. So,
so do the Tirangriel like run out like ammo?
Yeah. So you start out with one that's called the Air Pulse, and it's just kind of like spitting in someone's face. It's about as effective. Just and that's it. And then you quickly get the dart Tirangriel, because
sure,
because why not?
Right.
So you start the first level is the Bank of the Menethrandrael, and you are chasing an assassin because reasons. And so you come across a tinker's cart that's on fire. And inside, and of course, there's a dead tinker because they're always dead, when there's Trollocs about. And inside, there is a dart Tirangriel, which has like 30 ammo in it, and it shoots a dart. That's what it does.
Okay.
And then you quickly do get a fireball Tirangriel, which is a little more plausible, I suppose. And those have, that's a closer range thing. So, and there's others that are sort of interesting. Like there's one that will let you switch places with an enemy, which is kind of cool. There's one that will let you sort of teleport through like a window or something. So it's clear they're trying to do some interesting things that are maybe not the sort of things you see in a normal shooter. Like, there's a healing Tirangriel, of course. There's shields. There's one that lets you like reflect something that's shot at you back at your opponent. So in that way, it reminds me a little bit, if you ever heard of Deus Ex, it was a shooter in the 90s.
Yeah.
In which, that game, actually, if anything, that game was more of an RPG than this is. But just in terms of trying to push the boundary a little bit of what a shooter can be, I think this game is in that same spirit. Now, all that said, they absolutely should have made an RPG. No doubt about it. But it is an interesting, they try to do some interesting things given the boundaries that they've set for themselves, which the limitations they've set for themselves, all that to say, it's It does try to do that. The level design is awful though. There just needs
Yeah.
to be more light. Like I got lost so many times.
That was a problem with a lot of games back then. It seemed like they were, I don't know, they didn't they maybe they thought that if they designed their light to be dark, then it would make up for like poor texturing or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And there is a there's a tier angry that lets you make a light orb. Like I think Elaine and Egwene do that at one point as novices are accepted, like Lumos, kind of thing. And you can do that, but you don't get that in the first couple of levels. At least I didn't find it. Like this should just be a default thingy that you can turn on because I'm freaking lost and I can't see where I'm going here.
Yeah.
The intro, I just wanted to say the intro begins with a wind rises on Dragon Mount. So very nice. Getting the intro right, very good. And so, you watch the intro. We get the, little summation of the Age of Legends. It shows the Aes Sedai, I think, making the female Choden call, like, with the orb in its hand. And then we see the boar being created in the Dark One's prison. The narrator has some weird pronunciations, though. Point, he says, Shay Etan.
Yikes.
And then Quinn Diller. He literally says Quinn Diller.
Okay. Yeah, no.
That's just awful.
Yeah.
Quinn Diller. So then, the intro tells us about the War of the Shadow, Forsaken, the dragon, yada, yada, all this stuff. Really focuses on the seals on the dragon on the Dark One's prison. So they're the MacGuffin of the game. You're trying to get back the seals that the White Tower has, and somebody's taking them, yada, yada, yada. So some random dude breaks down a door in the tower with a fireball, asks where the seals are, kills some Aes Sedai. Amerlin blames the Black Aja, who they don't know. They don't know who they are. But so we're getting exactly what you're saying, that they didn't catch the dresses. Anyway, so she's like, we have to go after this dude who stole the seals and his Trolloc army. So how about the chick who can't channel?
Of course.
Yeah, so Elena, the main character, brings up the very thing. But the Amerlin's like, I can't trust anyone else. Hey, we've heard that before. Just like Swan.
Yeah.
So the tutorial is actually, the tutorial had me interested because it is the test to become accepted with the arches Tirangriel. But the arches look kind of like the McDonald's golden arches, honestly, just with an extra dimension.
Hey, there's just an opportunity for sponsorship within the show.
Just embedding some sponsorship, just
straight up, the McDonald's arches, like no food or anything, just throw it in there, and then you're just like watching it, and you're like, man, I
really
hungry.
Want a Big Mac right now. I don't know why. What is it? Yeah, for sure. So the first arch takes our girl to a cave where you learn how to jump because video games. The second, she's locked in a dark friend's basement, and she learns how to break boxes because whatever.
Also,
The third, you're in a fortress. I think you're in the Fortress of the Light, actually. I said from Faldera in my notes, but I think you're in the Fortress of the Light with an Aes Sedai and her warder. And it's kind of cool because the warder has a color shifting cloak, and you never quite know what that's going to look like. Well, they went the route of like every stealth video game where like you can see his outline and then he just disappears. I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. Because for some reason in my head, every time I hear that, I always think of just like a silver shower curtain. I don't know why, but this is a better image. And I think I'll have this in my head from now on, just kind of like stealth mode.
Well, good. I'm glad we could upgrade you from a silver shower curtain.
I don't know what to tell you. So the first level, I think, I mentioned you're chasing the guy past Tinker Wagons, and so you are fighting some Trollocs, and they look okay, but they yell, "Kill you!" That's they just run towards you and yell that. So you get to the end of that level, and the second level is in Shadar Logoth, which does, as I mentioned, feature Mashadar, but it's not really a menacing fog, but it's more of kind of a slightly inconvenient steam. Like it's just like a line of steam that kind of follows you. But it does whisper "stay" in a nicely creepy way, which that's okay. That works pretty well. Yeah. So the next level is the sewers of Shadar Logoth, which are about as well lit as you would expect. So, fair enough. And, I just have to say, in terms of places in the world, I was about to say the world of Warcraft. Wow. The world of Wheel of Time. I'd like to visit the sewers of Shadar Logoth. Wouldn't have ranked high.
Right.
I'd spent a lot of time running into walls. Hadn't gotten that that Tyrion Grail to create an orb. There are monsters in here, and they're Trollocs, and these so they call them horrors. I guess they didn't have enough with Mashadar. These thingies, they kind of look like Zerglings to me, but they sound like crying. They sound like crying babies. I don't know. It's very strange. Oh, one thing the assassin mentions in one of the little cutscenes is that Ishmael has a fortress in the Mountains of Mist. Whoa,
yeah,
that's kind of interesting. Hadn't heard that one.
Okay.
So in one of these cutscenes, she says, she's like, they're in this room full of gold, and she says, "Where are my artifacts, Hound?" And he says, "Woof. Is that all you want?" And then he rolls in gold like Scrooge McDuck, and then Mashadar kills him. Then Elena finds some more Aes Sedai trapped in Shadow logos. So anyway, I probably wouldn't even have gotten this far without some cheating. I just like found some cheat codes. You can give yourself health ammo, God mode. You can switch levels. You can go ghost. You can fly. So I was flying around, broke the game a few times. But I don't think it'd be going too far to call the campaign fun. There is a multiplayer apparently, but I can't imagine anybody's playing it. I don't know. I might try to do that. But listeners, if anyone has played the Wheels Time video game, especially the online component, send me a message. You can kick my butt in it happily. I'd love to see that, but I don't know.
We'd love to have a follow-up where we talk more about, what the multiplayer experience is like.
There's the single player. There's way too many platform jump puzzles, flip the right lever to open the gate kind of stuff. I might kind of keep going and report back at some point, but it was a fun experience to kind of like dive into this, and especially because it's clear that they really do care about the lore and they wanted to try to be true to it, other than the fact that they made a shooter starring an Aes Sedai.
Right. Yeah. It's just odd.
Yeah, it is, but it was fun anyway. I definitely I will probably investigate a little more. Maybe we'll have another follow-up of some kind.
Sure enough. Well, that comes down to the end of our episode today. Visit our website at tsmpodcast.com. Fill out our contact form and let us know how we're doing. If you make a correction, then we'll make that correction in a future episode, maybe. And if you have nice things to say, we'll give you a shout out. Follow us on all the socials at Podcast TSM and jump on there, say hey. We love hearing from you. And also be sure to rate us wherever you get your podcast and share us with your friends who are getting into the series. There's a lot of people who are starting that up right now.
Heck yeah, true.
Be sure to join us next week. We'll be somewhere in Lord of Chaos.
Yes, indeed.
And until next time, Tai'Shar Netherin.